restarted.
Hey everyone, it's Dave here.
And it's Tom.
So today we're looking at Hawken on Xbox One, and this is something of an interesting release. The game's actually been in development for a good many years and first arrived on PC way back in 2012 in a beta form, running using a DirectX 9.
Right, and now it's finally come out to consoles, and well, the performance isn't superb, but can you talk us through what's going on here and, well, exactly what's going on with all the tearing?
Right, well, the game's basically running with an uncapped frame rate, so in theory it can go all the way up to 60 frames per second in sort of less demanding scenes, but we don't actually ever see it quite reach that high. Instead, it's kind of usually between sort of 30-40 FPS, and it can often drop below. And on top of that, it's also running without VSync.
Okay, it would have benefited from VSync, at 30 FPS hard lock. I can imagine it actually being quite, decent enough, a lot better than what we're seeing here in some ways. When the game fluctuates up and down the scale like this, it never feels that good. In some ways it reminds me of Titanfall, but kind of a lot worse, in terms of the general outlay of tearing and, it's full screen tearing going up and down, and just generally the aesthetic of it as well reminds me of that, incidentally.
Yes, it's an interesting choice. My initial thoughts were that a 30 FPS cat with VSync would definitely work better, but what I've found is, curiously, because there is no VSync and frames can be rendered out as soon as they're ready, the controller response isn't so bad in terms of when we're just looking at sort of frame rates in between, say, 30 and 40 FPS. It actually feels, dare I say it, a little bit more responsive than a locked 30 FPS game.
But it's just the way it looks is the big hit, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's...
And this is Unreal Engine 3 as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Unreal Engine 3, and presumably this is based on the latest version of the game that originally appeared on PC. So they went from a DirectX 9 renderer to DirectX 11 and added a bunch of improved visual effects and generally increased the graphical quality throughout. Saying that, it still doesn't look that amazing, to be honest. It's kind of a real mixed bag from what I've played so far.
You can, I guess, excuse it in some respects for being a free-to-play game. I mean, you're not paying out money for this experience. You can dip in and check it out and then just leave it if you don't like it. But even so, it's a little bit disappointing to see all those dips. I mean, there's proper stutters there going down to 20 FPS, and I can't imagine it's that fun to play. What's your experience been like playing it?
Well, I found that when the stutters don't occur, the actual game is actually quite fun to play. Obviously, the tearing is distracting from a visual point of view, but the controls feel pretty decent. Those stutters, though, they are really damaging when they occur. You're looking at like over 150 millisecond spikes, and the game literally just freezes up in segments, which makes it very, very distracting. That's probably the biggest complaint I have.
Right, and that brings us on to the topic of image quality. We had a discussion about this, and I had a long look at the image before deciding, hey, it's a native 1080p, it looks like. But there's something about the image, isn't there, that just doesn't quite look right. It may be the excess of post-processing filters they've got going on here. We noticed the film grain, I suppose, adds to it. But something doesn't look very clear about the image where it probably should, given that it's one edge per pixel across all the tests we've done, meaning it should be a native 1080p.
Right, exactly, but I've found that you go from some scenes, certain objects appear pretty sharp, and others, things look really soft and blurry, and there is a lot of post-processing going on here, film grain, depth of field, and sort of other effects, but I'm wondering whether it's a combination of those plus the anti-aliasing solution that's maybe just creating an image that sometimes looks, below 1080p when it isn't.
Well, we'll have to take a look at the upcoming PS4 version to get a real grasp on what's going on here. Maybe with that perspective we can get a hang of what's going on with Xbox One. But for now, that's about it, isn't it?
Yep, that covers it for now. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give us a like or subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.